In this video, I'm going to show you two major stories that has the Democrats basically rolling out the red carpet for criminals, and I'm talking violent ones. Plus, Chris Cuomo, he lays into the left, all while Dems are caught booing over saving your taxpayer money. But first, a fiery exchange between CBS's Margaret Brennan and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Watch Brennan basically defend a man who helped orchestrate a demonstration at Columbia University that not only threatened certain students, blocked others from entering their classrooms, and even damaged property.
But is there any evidence of a link to terrorism, or is it just his point of view?
Yeah, they take over. You should watch the news. These guys take over entire buildings. They vandalize colleges. They shut down colleges.
I'm asking about the justification for the revocation of his visa. Was there any evidence of material support for terrorism?
Was the negotiator negotiating on behalf of people that took over a campus, that vandalized buildings? Negotiating over what? That's a crime in and of itself, that they're involved in being the negotiator, the spokesperson, this, that, the other. We don't want it. We don't need these people in our country. We never should have allowed them in the first place. If he had told us, I'm going over there and I'm going over there to become the spokesperson and one of the leaders of a movement that's going to turn one of your allegedly elite colleges upside down, people can't even go to school, library buildings being vandalized, we never would have let him in. We never would have let him in to begin with. And now that he's doing it and he's here, he's going to leave, and so are others, and we're going to keep doing it.
How many times is the media going to get burned by this administration before they learn their lesson? They too seem to find it necessary to defend the indefensible. Now, last year, a majority of these students at Columbia University, they couldn't even walk on campus without looking over their shoulder. The left? Crickets. The Biden administration? Nothing. But now, the American people are finally getting accountability.
We don't want people in our country that are going to be committing crimes and undermining our national security or the public safety. It's that simple, especially people that are here as guests. That is what a visa is. I don't know where we've gotten it in our head that a visa is some sort of birthright. It is not. It is a visitor into our country. And if you violate the terms of your visitation, you are going to leave.
Now, over the weekend, we had another example of the far left coming to the defense of gang members. An Obama-appointed judge temporarily blocked the Trump administration's attempt to rapidly deport Venezuelan gang members by using an 18th century Alien Enemies Act. So what this basically is saying is Trump flying a plane of foreign terrorists, gang members, out of the country is illegal. But Biden flying planeloads of illegals into our country is totally fine. If you think that's as backwards as I do, hit the like button for me. Imagine being the guy who orders violent gang members who illegally broke into our country to be immediately returned to the United States. Are these the people you want to be defending? Because this is what we're dealing with. The Democrats want to argue they deserve due process and use your tax dollars to let them stand trial. These aren't everyday people the Trump team is snatching up. These are hardened criminals who have no plans other than to deal drugs and abuse innocent people. They're not only a threat to American citizens, but they're also a danger to our valuable law enforcement.
That judge who tried to order those planes turned around. He put the lives of every single Homeland Security officer in danger with that order. Every one of them. He didn't know how much fuel was on those planes. He didn't know how many hours those pilots had flown. He didn't know where they were over international airspace. He didn't know a damn thing. He didn't care about the lives of those officers. He didn't care about the national security of this country. He didn't care about the laws or constitution of this country. Look, at some point, Martha, we're either going to have a country or we're not. And you can't have a country if any regime around the world can send a terrorist army across our borders to rape and murder our citizens.
Now check out this video. Stephen Miller, the man with the plan, reportedly got these gang members flown out to El Salvador before the judge could block the deportations. They knew it was coming. This is nothing new from the left. In fact, to give you some quick critical context, there has been 15 injunctions in just 1 month of President Trump's agenda. The Biden administration, they only faced 13 in the entirety of his presidency. And yet the left wants you to believe that Trump is the one weaponizing the Justice Department. Now, the judge who is putting a halt to these deportations wrote an order demanding no flights leave U.S. territory with these criminals. However, his specific order for the flight that was already en route to actually turn around and return was a verbal one. And the Trump team argues the flight was already over international waters when the judge ordered this, so therefore, too late, so sorry. That flight landed in El Salvador anyway. Here's the press secretary this morning.
Is the administration prepared to give the court what it wants in terms of the time of the flights that departed, that went to El Salvador?
I'm prepared to provide it right now. All of the planes that were subject to the written order, the judge's written order, took off before the order was entered in the courtroom on Saturday. And the administration will, of course, be happily answering all of those questions that the judge poses in court later today. I can assure the American people that Customs and Border Patrol and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security are sure about the identities of the individuals who were on these planes and the threat that they pose to our homeland. They take this incredibly seriously. They are putting their lives on the line to deport these designated terrorists from our country, and they should be trusted to do that. And that's exactly what the American people elected this president to do.
So you have these groups, ACLU to be exact, that are working with this activist judge to stop the deportation of gang members. Now, the plaintiffs were at the heart of this case that prompted the judge's ruling are 5 Venezuelan illegals. One of them in the court filings is described as someone who has been identified as a Tren de Aragua gang associate, but isn't a technical gang member, according to the ACLU. Another plaintiff is just covered head to toe in tattoos that look a whole lot like the tattoos associated with TDA, but it's just because he was trying to cover a monkey tattoo that he never liked. I'm not kidding. This is what is written exactly in these filings. So what this looks like is Trump has to meticulously abide by every scrupulous law in the book, while Joe Biden, he gets to violate every single immigration law to let them in the country in the first place. Seems a little hypocritical. Scott Jennings from CNN responded with this on X, quote, "Prepare for the next 80-20 issue. Dems passionately arguing for the return of Venezuelan gang members to spite Trump." And what do you know? Right on cue. New York Attorney General Letitia James proves us right, writing, quote, "Invoking the Alien Enemies Act, a centuries-old wartime law with a dark history, will fuel more chaos and fear across the nation. We will use every tool at our disposal to fight back against the Trump administration and protect the rights of immigrant communities." Why is she not fighting for the safety of American communities? The left is more concerned about how your actions will impact other countries rather than how we are affected here in America. They're also more worried over illegal and criminal migrants than they are the American citizen. I know you get this because the numbers I'm about to show you prove it.
Americans' favorable views of the Democratic Party's brand are at a record low, just 29%. That's compared to 36% for Republicans. It is the lowest ever recorded for Democrats in CNN polling going back more than 30 years.
So what's it going to take? Because the numbers for the left are plummeting. They're in free fall. It's like watching a sinking ship, but instead of patching the holes, they're still arguing about the deck chairs. Meanwhile, Americans are watching in disbelief. And here's the cherry on top. Let's talk about how the left is now against supporting American companies like Tesla after Trump shows his support.
I'm assuming you agree, because as a Republican strategist, you wouldn't have advised him to go in front of the White House and drive a Tesla.
Wait, why?
Because
of course I would have. You know why? Because if I were advising a Republican president, I would say, let's support American companies that have thousands of American workers and thousands more workers who make indirect products for it. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea if American companies did well under my administration.
Okay, so you're going to go ahead and support a billionaire, but not support the American worker, and not necessarily.
Who do you think makes Teslas, Sochi? American workers.
Donald Trump.
Democrats so excited to tear down an American company or companies the way they are right now. It's crazy.
The left is choosing to not only tear down American companies, but they're also fighting against a company that supports 130,000 American workers. It brings in billions of dollars into our economy, and it provides a greener future. Didn't those used to be the major pillars of the Democratic Party? Now, another thing the left used to support was a $7 trillion continuing resolution to fund the government, but not now.
Pelosi actually wants senators to defy Schumer and shut the government down. Pelosi's statement is proof of the problem. Trump and Musk have offered the Congress a false choice between a government shutdown or a blank check. What proof is there of that? It makes a devastating assault on the well-being of working families across America. What proof is there of that in this CR? I read it. America has experienced a Trump shutdown before, but this damaging legislation only makes matters worse. How? How? We must fight back for a better way. What better way? telling senators to defy Schumer? Pelosi postures like this is about fighting for you against tax cuts for the rich and taking pressure off the working class. That is bull blank bleep. This is a continuing resolution. You know what that means? Pelosi does. She's lying to you about it. Why? Advantage. A continuing resolution means they are extending the funding from the last budget deal, which was a CR. Okay? It was under Biden.
So what is Pelosi arguing? Is she trying to say that the Democrats did you dirty when they all agreed to the same spending bill that Biden signed last year? Or who knows? I don't know. Maybe it was his auto pen that signed it for all we know. But here's what we do know. In September, Biden signed $1.6 trillion in a continuing resolution, a CR. All the Democrats voted for it. In December, Biden signed another one, this CR for $1.7 trillion. It added over $100 billion in disaster aid for the hurricanes at the time, and basically all the Democrats voted for it. Now this bill, this CR is essentially the same, the one that was passed just last week. It has $1.7 trillion in funding, just like in December. Now, are there any differences? Of course there are. This one cuts the DC budget by $1 trillion and other earmarked programs. It also adds $6 billion to defense spending. However, these aren't major changes in spending. So what's changed? Donald Trump is now in the equation. And because Chuck Schumer thought it was best for the American people to agree with a bill that in no way was drastically different than what the Democrats passed under Biden, some on the left are now threatening to leave the party.
And I'm pissed.
Yep.
Okay, so, there's actually little that the Senate minority leader can say and the 10 Democrats that voted with the Republicans can say to appease somebody like me. I'm about to change my registration to independent.
So that is Simone Sanders Townsend. If you're not familiar, she's a former press secretary of Bernie Sanders and was a senior advisor for both President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So she's a big voice in the party. For her to say she's done, that's big news. Now, another topic that Democrats are now abandoning is DOGE.
Since January, DOGE has saved $115 billion. That amounts to...
Order.
Please. That amounts to $714 per taxpayer.
The Democrats are booing over you saving money. It is wild. And guess what? They used to be for DOGE.
When there is waste and fraud, you have an administration who should also be on top of that situation.
If we're going to eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare, it does mean we're going to cut some of that out. And when I hear my friend Dave Camp say you cannot cut money out of Medicare, well, we don't want to cut the good stuff that you point out, or add the prevention. But if we're going to, if what Senator Coburn says, that 1/3 of Medicare doesn't go to patient care, you can't just get up there and say, we don't want to cut anything out of Medicare. We want to cut the bad stuff and keep the good stuff.
This is where we see proof that the Democrats continue to choose the wrong side of every 80-20 issue.
You hear about DOGE there in the setup, and broadly speaking, the people do think this is a popular idea here. A good idea, 46%. Bad idea, 40%. Look at it this way. When you ask folks what should DOGE be doing going forward, a third say much more. 28% say DOGE is needed, just needs to slow the pace down. But that's 61% total who seem to say that DOGE is basically a good thing, a necessary thing right now.
Yes, we are sick and tired of our hard-earned money going to greedy government workers and their pet projects. We are the ones busting our butts to keep a roof over our heads, put food on the table for our kids, and make sure our children are getting a good education. And for what? So people like Stacey Abrams can just get rich off of us? I don't think so. The American people are done. We've had it, and we demand transparency, which is what we are finally getting with President Trump in the White House.
The mood of the country, this really jumped out. We asked folks, is it on the right direction or the wrong direction? That 44% who say right direction, that's up since November. And if that doesn't seem like a lot, the last time it cracked 40%, you got to go back to 2012. The last time it actually hit 44 or higher, January of 2004.
Look, it's plain and simple. The American people are tired of being ignored, right? We deserve leaders who put America first, not criminals, not foreign interests, and certainly not terrorists. If the left keeps defending the indefensible, the American people will do exactly what they do best. They will continue to vote them out. Now, for more on the current state of the economy and the new goal President Trump has for all Americans making under $150,000, you'll want to check out the next video coming up on your screen. As always, I want to thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.